Well, hi there. We're looking at a tank today. The theme is observation. What do we enjoy most about our fish tanks? Well, it's really quite simple. We enjoy most looking at them. Looking at each individual fish, looking at how the fish are acting with each other, looking at things like the clarity of the water, the fact that there is water flow, there's current coming in. Can you see the little bubbles at the top? I have a pipe above the water level that has holes in it, and it's squirting the water in. And I can tell that one of those holes is plugged up. So let's get up and see if we can fix it. I'll have a drink for it. I'll be putting this poke in it like that. See if I have anything in my pocket. Probably not. There's a key. Let's try a key. Not likely, but we'll try. Nice if it's something. Let that look. Oh, here we go. Thomas just handed me the perfect tool. It's a little bit of algae. There it is. All right. And it looks like now they're all open.
See underwater anywhere.
Nice. The fish are not being super busy. They're moving kind of slowly, and this is really quite a mix of Africans, Central Americans, Malawis. There are even a few different kinds of catfish here in the bottom that are Asian fish. Some of these are a hybrid. These guys are a hybrid between a red-bait snook and a Texas cichlid. So they're a Central American cichlid, a Central American mix, an unusual mix. So we're real curious as to how they're going to grow out. And there are these big giant peacocks, parrots. I mean, I don't have any peacocks in here. I usually have a few, but they get sold pretty quick. They're jewel cichlids. That's an African river fish that's all over Florida. They've just become very invasive. There are babies in here from the Malawi cichlids, little guys about an inch long. The plants all look pretty good. Thomas has been working on this tank, getting it planted, and they seem to be doing pretty well. That back there is a South American cichlid. That's a Severum. It's a mouth brooder Severum. He's probably the most unhappy fish in this tank. And you can see he's not really excited to be here. His fins are not clamped, but he's just kind of careful, if you know what I mean. He's not creating any kind of disturbance, not moving quickly, not drawing any attention to himself, kind of keeping to the side, getting out of the way of other fish as they come along, more or less hiding. There's a fish right above him that's another one, another South American. It's called a Damaris cichlid. Not a particularly pretty one, but a very gentle fish that gets really quite large. So let's look at the fish then. Nobody looks particularly upset set. There's no fin clamping going on. These are fish, many of which in some tanks are extremely busy, active, and aggressive. The reason they're not in here is because there's so many of them. So they're all the time in front of a new fish. It's not two guys who are pairing off against each other. That's another reason why we don't have a lot of digging going on in here. These Malawi cichlids, particularly, there's a peacock, would be digging up the sand, building nests. They don't do that so much in here because there is so much competition. They're just kind of keeping out of each other's way. There's a Jack Dempsey in the back. That's another South American cichlid. Actually, there's several of them. Another Damaris. Notice how those are hanging in the back. The Damaris, the Dempseys, the Severums, all of the South Americans are not mixing it up so much with these guys up front. The Central American, and there's not a lot of those in here, the parrots, and of course all of the Malawis, they're all up front milling around. They're all much more aggressive fish, much more dominant fish, and so they don't mind mixing up. Every once in a while you'll see a fish kind of dart away from another one as it's coming across. It's usually a smaller fish staying out of the way. There is dominance in here. Watch this big dark guy, the zebra Mbuna, as he pecks at other people, pokes them away. He's maintaining a territory, even in this much, with this many fish in here. He really doesn't like this guy one little bit, but he's a little big for him to fight with. So he'll mainly just kind of keep this area of the rock open. That would be his breeding territory. So if there were a female ready to spawn, and I don't know that there is, she would be hanging around. I don't see much hanging around. This one down here, perhaps. So a little peacock, couple of them. And those look like they're females, kind of hanging toward the bottom. See how the Damaris is swimming kind of sideways. He's obviously behaving in such a way as to not show any dominance at all. He's showing a lot of permissive behavior, a lot of submissive behavior. He's being a very submissive fish. This guy's being a very dominant fish. The other little ones at the top and around are just kind of maintaining their own space. They're not getting into trouble, not staying out of trouble particularly. Here's a convict cichlid just going forward. He's a pretty aggressive little guy. He just got booted out of the way a little bit with by one of the Mbunas. But I don't think there's a female in here. That's a male, and so he's not exhibiting any spawning behavior. He's simply kind of coasting around. But he's being pretty dominant. He's not afraid of anybody. He's perfectly willing to do a little chasing if he needs to. He's kind of following along. See how he does with this guy. No, they're not gonna have anything to do with each other. Some fish in the back are staying out of the fray. Fish toward the bottom back there, like the Jack Dempsey, are just kind of staying away from the main behavior here. The macaw gator has been sounding off all day. You'll hear them breaking in every once in a while. So there we go. The fish look healthy. They look happy. They get fed once every couple of days, so there's not a lot of feeding activity. If I come along, there's very little attempt to follow me, a little, but really not much. It's not like they're all ganging up, even if I splash the water a little bit. It's not bringing, well, a few coming up. They think there might be something, but,
They get fed every day.
you know, they are getting fed every day? Okay,
Not much.
just a little bit every day.
Customers like it when they follow their fingers.
Great. So I would say these fish are healthy. They're a little overcrowded, but this is a shop and we kind of need to do that. I would not do this in a home aquarium. I would not have quite this many in a home aquarium. It is pretty. It's nice. The air stone is not working.
Because the pump's off.
Oh, that's right. We turned the pump off. Okay. Normally, we want to have two sources of moving water. We have the pump that's pumping from the sump in the bottom, and we have an air stone that's keeping air flow. So if one of them goes out, the other will keep the water movement going. And with this many fish, and especially African Mbunas, they're a very they utilize a lot of oxygen. They burn a lot of oxygen in the water. So it's kind of dangerous having this many fish in a tank if the pump goes out or the air goes out. If we lost power for any amount of time, I would have to take a bunch of them out of here. They just would not survive otherwise. But it looks like everybody's healthy, everybody's happy. I don't see any real issues. If you see something that you're concerned about or curious about, leave a note and we'll be happy to respond to you. Again, the fish are not acting intensely aggressive, mostly because there's so many of them. And we do not keep them heavily fed. They're, if anything, underfed. So they're not showing a lot of feeding kind of behavior. Well, that's an example of how we look at a tank, what we look for, what we try to see and keep an eye on. We didn't see any problems in particular. One or two of these small fish are looking skinnier than I would like them to be. Probably they're not getting enough food. We probably ought to consider taking some of the little ones out and setting them up in a tank by themselves, just so they can get a little more nutrition that they're getting. Small fish particularly can tend to suffer, so that would be one of the main issues that I'd be concerned about with these fish is the little ones are not doing so well. Some of them were born in here, so but they're at a point where they're being dominated pretty strongly. They're trying to mix in with everybody. They're not hiding in the bottom anymore. And so we need to give them a better chance than they're getting now. So that's it. Please leave comments, and we'll be happy to talk some more about this. And we'll do this in another tank. So always an interesting exercise, looking at a tank and really studying it, getting a sense of what's going on with it. Lots we didn't talk about, much about the plants. Many of them have been put in recently, so we're not seeing a whole lot of growth yet, but that'll come a little later on. Thanks for plugging in. See you all again soon. Catch you in the morning for our morning streams. We have a lot of fun there and are able to deal with a lot of issues that our hobbyist friends are all struggling with. So see you then. Bye for now. Father Fish saying happy fish.